Hey there, deck builders! Welcome back to another episode of Super Budget Commander. I'm your friendly neighborhood host, Alex. Thanks for hanging out with me. Today, I've got a very cool Edric Spymaster of Trest deck that I'm really excited to show you guys. You know the drill, a Super Budget Commander deck has a maximum price of $50. The majority of the cards featured in this deck list cost less than $1 each. And don't be fooled by the low price tag. A Super Budget Commander deck has a clear, consistent strategy and is built to win. Once again, thanks for joining me. Now let's get started. Edric Spymaster of Trest is a 3-to-cast 2/2 elf rogue. On the surface, Edric might not look all that intimidating, but I assure you, he's one of the most powerful aggro commanders in the format. This deck is all about speed. We're going to play a lot of creatures, and we're going to draw a lot of cards. Edric embodies the best of powerful blue spells and green aggression. No combos, no shenanigans, just lightning fast, straight up aggro. Unlike a lot of decks out there, Edric doesn't need to rely on Artifact Ramp to get out of the gate quickly. The only two mana rocks I run in this deck are Soul Ring and Simic Signet. Both help facilitate a quick start, and Simic Signet in particular is great color fixing in the early game. Same as with the Artifact Ramp, the green mana ramp spells are limited but very effective. I've specifically chosen Lay of the Land and Rampant Growth because of their low mana cost. They're also fantastic for getting that extra forest or island you need in the early game. Harvest Season is another perfect spell for this deck. It's not uncommon for this green powerhouse to fetch you 5 or 6 basic lands. Well, would you look at that, the Dork Squad is back, and this time, they brought the whole crew. These mana dorks are the engine that makes this deck run. Without them, it'd be very difficult to get out of the gate quickly. My two favorites are Elvish Pioneer and Sakura Tribe Scout. Extra lands on turn 1 and 2 really help us establish a board presence and ensure that we get Edric out as soon as possible. Edric has an abundance what a lot of aggro decks really lack: card draw. The key is assembling an army of evasive creatures. Unblockable creatures like Slitherblade and Mist-Cloaked Herald are unusable in most decks, but in Edric, they really shine. Every creature that gets through is just one more card in your hand and gets you that much closer to a win condition. Why only draw one card when one of your creatures gets through to an opponent when you can draw 2? That's why we have Bident of Thassa. And seeing as we have a deck full of 1 toughness creatures, Skull Clamp is an auto-include. Killing off a mana dork or 2 to draw some cards is pretty good. Cards like Spellbook are also very important. We want to make sure that we get to be greedy and keep all the cards we draw, instead of having to throw away things that we could really use. Even the removal in this deck is quick and to the point. We can't afford to let our opponents set up enchantments like Ghostly Prison that prevent us from attacking, or big creatures or threats that we can't deal with. We have to have quick ways to get rid of them. And seeing as we're in blue, we might as well take advantage of some bounce spells. Equilibrium is a bounce powerhouse in this deck. Seeing as most of the creatures here are 1-drops, we'll easily have enough mana to be able to play a creature, then bounce an opponent's creature back to their hand, which just opens them up for free attacks. And Chain of Vapor is a great way to temporarily disable something that's really getting in the way of our plans. And sometimes we're going to run across creatures that we really don't want to deal with. That's why we carry a Rapid Hybridization and a Reality Shift. I'm also a huge fan of Siren Storm Tamer, Martyr of Frost, and Spiketail Hatchling. Having creatures that can also be counterspells is a great way to surprise your opponents and make sure that they think twice about every spell they cast. And naturally, since we're in blue, I've included some straight up old-fashioned counterspells. Go figure, your opponents are going to be throwing a lot of removal your way, so you might as well have a way to disrupt them. If you're feeling timid and aren't ready to beat your opponents into submission, this is not the deck for you. The goal is to play a lot of creatures, but it's equally important that those creatures are evasive. We can't afford to have our creatures be chump blocked, otherwise we're going to have a difficult time drawing cards. Packing the deck full of small flying creatures is another great way to get around your opponent's would-be blockers. You'll be surprised with just how fun it is to ping your opponents with little creatures like flying men. Once again, the more evasive our creatures are, the easier it is for us to rack up damage on our opponents and keep our hand full of cards. Inevitably, you're going to run into that player who just has a deck full to the brim of board wipes. That's why we have Hope of Ghirapur, so we can just say nope. Signal Pest is a nice add here too. It might not seem like it, but that extra little +1 buff to your creatures in the early game can really help get off a lot of extra damage. Wirewood Symbiote is a really fun creature. We can always bounce a Mana Dork back to our hand, then untap a creature like Sakura Tribe Scout, which we can then abuse to play multiple basic lands every single turn. Sylvan Safekeeper is a must-have. Seeing as our mana curve is really low, it's easy for us to sacrifice a land or two to keep an important creature like Edric alive a little longer. The real MVP of this deck, though, is the Squid Lord himself, Chasm Skulker. Trust me, you're going to draw a lot of cards, and when you do, you're going to power him up and make him capable of beating face. And if your opponents happen to respond and wipe your board, or remove the Skulker in any way, you get to replace him with a ton of little squid tokens. Slowly pinging your opponents to death with 1-drop creatures is cool and all, but we need some ways to really power up our creatures. Spells like Overrun and Beastmaster Ascension turn your little 1/1s into beefy 4/4s or 6/6s that are more than capable of eliminating your opponents. Triumph of the Hordes is just downright evil. Turning all those little 1/1s into infect creatures is a great way to irritate everybody at the table. And let's not forget about Biomass Mutation. This has the benefit of being instant speed, meaning we can trick an opponent into believing they're only getting hit by some 1/1s, then turn those creatures into 5/5s or 6/6s. Brutal. A lot of the more expensive Edric lists out there run extra turn spells. However, a lot of these are pretty expensive. I've managed to include 2 of them in this deck that are on the cheaper end, and if you time them correctly, they can be absolutely devastating. My favorite one of these spells is Notorious Throng. This spell is downright disgusting. Having the ability to deal a bunch of damage to your opponents, then capitalize on that damage by making a ton of fairy tokens, and then taking an extra turn? Oh my goodness. Seeing as Edric himself is a rogue, it makes paying the prowl cost on this spell really easy. And since we're in green, we might as well capitalize on some of the really good recursion spells out there. Spells like Nostalgic Dreams, Reclaim, and Regrowth give us the ability to bring back win condition spells we've already used and use them again. I mean, come on, who doesn't want to use Triumph of the Hordes or Notorious Throng multiple times in the same game? I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I wanted to take a quick moment to thank all of you for being so supportive of the Super Budget Commander series. And don't forget to check out the deck list over on Tapped Out. I've put a link to that in the description. Thank you for tuning in. If you like this video and you want more just like it, be sure to hit that like button. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe, and welcome to the Deck Builder Society. And if you want to support this channel's growth, share this video with your friends or on social media. You know what's up. Stay classy, deck builders. I'll see you next time.